Actually, we are doing the evaluation of farm modernization measure for second time in our evaluation, because we knew that we will use FADN data in this evaluation, this measure, and we did it also last year, but on the data panel which ended by the year of 2013. And now we have complete data from FADN database on 2014, and I assume that this is an evaluation for this measure we can use in our final report if the audience will have not so many objections on what we have done. But first of all, I have one question about not this measure, but about the quantitative and qualitative assessment of program impacts or effects. I used to work for some 10 years in private business, and when I asked my good friend accountant in the private company, how can you assess qualitative? How can you do qualitative assessment of gross value added? She asked, what does it mean, gross value added? Because gross value added is a macroeconomic term, and it's used in national accounts, and usually people in companies, they don't know about what does it mean, gross value added. And that's my question to the audience. How can you provide qualitative assessment, qualitative inquiries or focus group discussions on this? Then you have to explain in detail what does it mean, output, intermediate consumption, and so on. And it's time consuming, and my idea is that nobody would provide qualitative assessment on gross value added. And this is very important variable. It's used in labor productivity. So that's all for this. I can go on. Maybe we can skip contents and go straight to evaluation context. Our approach in evaluation is that if we have measure which is very small by importance in terms of inputs and expected outcomes, like a measure for education and consulting, we are not using counterfactual evaluation. We are not trying even to find treatment and control groups. We will rely on some kind of qualitative assessment. And that's why we decided to start with the measure, farm modernization measure, because it consumes much of program resources. It's very important also in terms of expected outcomes and effects and impacts. And we have the following steps decided. We want to provide answers to evaluation questions from 15 to 24 as they are connected with measures, and then for each measure we establish gross impacts, then we measure for deadweight and actually deadweight effect for measure, get net effect for the measure, and then make some aggregate over axis 1 and axis 3 for all the economic variables, gross value added, productivity, and employment. And then, as Latvia is a very small country, we are making calculations for substitution effects and displacement effects on national level, and these effects are subtracted from aggregates and that's the way we are going to get aggregate net values of economic variables for whole the program. We are using PSM-DEAD method, and that's also should be mentioned in some guidelines. We are using Stata software, and as Jerzy told, maybe other software R and MATLAB can be used, but I have tried unsuccessfully to use very popular software package SPSS, and it doesn't work, and we are relying on Stata software in calculation of doing all the calculations. For the farm modernization measures, we are using FADN database, which consists of 243 units. Units are maybe changing on year, and we cannot use all the units. Some units are reporting only on 2 years in the period, so the treatment and control groups are not just split on half as from all FADN data, but about 200 or 300 units which are which can be used for treatments and controls. In empirical analysis, we are using 4 steps from selected data panel. We are, first of all, we selected all the available economic and financial variables, some kind of 70 variables. And then we try to do logistic regression, and some variables are collinear, some variables are very, let's say, empty of data, and usually about some 55 or 56, 59 variables are retained for logistics regression. Then, after logistics regression, we are doing stratification of propensity scores, and balancing properties should be tested in each block. But this is done automatically by Stata. You can see only the results. If the results are in red, you have to repeat this process. And then after that, average treatment effects on treated are calculated. And the last one is, I have failed all the time to do this sensitivity test, and actually, you know how it is. But anyway, I think if you are failing to do this sensitivity test, we can keep our results. Yeah. Maybe you can explain later. Yeah. These are Stata procedures we are using, and basically I have used 3 methods of propensity score matching, nearest neighbor, radius, and kernel matching. I have dropped stratified matching because stratified matching provides very bad results. And as it is time consuming, I use only 3 methods. I better go to major findings. Here you can see this logistics regression. And this table, I'm not sure this table should be included in the ex-post evaluation report, or maybe we can keep it on just on as amendment, because it takes 1 page if we have 59 variables, and it's not so informative. It's just a report of statistical outcomes. And I think this table should be kept, because here we can see direct impact on gross value added. In right left corner, it's about 36,000 euros per 1 participant. And then after we have calculated this average treatment effect on 1 unit, we multiply this number by supported farms. Then we have gross impact in million euros. Then after that, we divide it to purchasing parity, which is about 64% in 2014. And then we get the gross impact of the measured in purchasing parity standard, which is higher than in euros, because our purchasing parity is lower than in Europe. Then we have similar calculations on labor productivity, on employment, because we can expect that if we are doing modernization, then certainly this measure will have negative impact on employment, and the results show that each unit loses about 0.8 employees, or average on average working unit, annual working unit. After that, we calculate deadweight loss by applying propensity score matching to average annual gross investments. And this also is not very proper using this gross investment, because the investments can be done not only in modernization, but in other branches. But we don't have such detailed data in FADN database to tell that these investments in control group are similar to investments in treatment group. So this is wild guess, and I think it's a rough percentage of evaluation of deadweight effects. So, and this is a question I want to put to Jerzy. If you have deadweight 15%, it means that 15% of farms would undertake investments are even in the absence of a program. Yes, but what does it mean minus 23%? What can we deduct from this?
Minus comes from which part?
Minus comes from unmatched participants because they have negative.
Okay. So it means that there is
No data. Okay, that, yeah.
That means that all effects are due to the program.
Very good. Okay. That, because, yeah. And my question is, leverage effects. We are not using leverage effects in any calculations. It's just other effects. They should be used in answers for question 20. What other effects of the program?
Yes, leverage effects are part of indirect effects. So it means that when you start to analyze indirect effects, you look what happens at the leverage level.
Yeah.
It means that because of the program, for instance, some beneficiaries also could purchase more, maybe, consumer goods.
Yeah.
And then I don't know. I mean, from the policy point of view, it's not always good to have evidence that those who invested and who received money from the program suddenly had higher consumption, private consumption, or maybe they built up own private assets, more proportionally than others, because it means that this money goes indirectly to consumption and increases, of course, the quality of life of those who were so lucky that they received support.
Maybe you can keep the microphone, because I have a question to you as an author of guidelines, because in guidelines it is specified that you can use a variable which is money transfers from farm to household. Where you can get this data?
Variable which was included in German farm bookkeeping records. And this is very good variable to be used for, analysis of the leverage effect. Not always. You have to also think about this, that this what you see in FADN should come from bookkeeping data. And usually the bookkeeping data includes more variables than FADN. Depends in the country, but you may check it. You may check it. And maybe also in your case, you will see that you will be having in your bookkeeping data some variables which you will not find in FADN. So you may also use these variables.
Thank you. And this is final page. We can compare the outcomes with target values. We had we supported slightly more farms than we expected. Investments are 4 times less than expected. Net additional value added is slightly less than we expected, but changes in gross value added per employed are, the target value is met. So how can we evaluate the effectiveness and efficiency? I think that if the variable's target value is not achieved, but by some margin, can we say that the program is partly effective or partly efficient? We decided that if the value is about 75% from planned value, so we can say the program is partly effective. But it's not specified in guidelines. If you are missing, let's say, 1% of expected value, can we say that we are not successful?
You have the level of effectiveness.
I would like to know what level.
Level effectiveness is very easy. I mean, to calculate. 100 would be if the target is achieved completely.
Yeah.
And everything below is the percentage of this 100.
And so we can report this level of, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, but this is only one measure, and you have other measures.
Yeah, I see. Yeah. So these are outcomes from this measure, and okay, I think I'll finish, and maybe you can put questions, because then we will. I try to evaluate this effectiveness and efficiency in percentages.
Efficiency should not be here measured in percentage.
Okay. But we can measure effectiveness in percentages. Yeah, but efficiency?
Efficiency should be measured per 1,000 euro spent on a program. So it means that when you compute the net effect of the program at beneficiary level, you have to also take into consideration how much money you spend in order to get this effect. And the ratio is the measure of efficiency.
I see. So we had 4 times less money spent.
So let's say that you have the net effect of the program, 30,000 increase on gross value added. Yes? But how much was spent for this at the beneficiary level? The average for beneficiary level may be 140,000.
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah.
So it means that they received 140,000 and the effect of the program was 30,000. Okay. Is it this what we want to get from the program? Mm-hmm. And this is, of course, only in short term. But then you may also calculate effectiveness and efficiency in other periods. So you add this effectiveness, let's say, in 1 year, and you compute, everything over the longer period of time.
Okay.
Thank you. My name is Pia Nilsson, and I'm from Jönköping University. I'm also part of the Swedish evaluation team, and I have a number of questions for you.
To Jerzy or me?
That doesn't matter. So I'm just wondering, the results that you present here, for me as an economist, are a bit nuisance, I think, because what you say is that you have 243 units, basically observations, in your data set, and you have 59 variables.
Yeah.
You can't estimate a model like that, because
Why?
I don't know if you heard of the concept of degrees of freedom in statistics, but you need at least 10 observations for each variable that you put into a regression model. So that this is a big problem that I think that you need to address.
So you suggest me to decrease the number of variables?
Exactly.
But
Because,
you know what happens? What happens if you are skipping variables with very low t-values? Actually, you should skip these variables because they are not statistically significant and they are not affecting the regression. But if you are skipping these variables, you are losing balancing properties. So all these variables should be kept. This is not an easy process.
I think what's missing is that for each variable that you put into a regression model, you need to have theory behind that. You need to have, you're testing economic theory.
Okay,
you have an expectation for
but then you
each
have
of the
to
variables.
then you have to put the suggestion to modify the evaluation guidelines and papers of Jerzy, because he's using 66 variables in some.
But that's not.
That's not
a good way to do it, I would say. I think most statisticians would agree with me. But I have another question, and is it the binary treatment effect that you're estimating, or is it the continuous one?
Binary treatment,
The binary treatment effect. Do you think that this might be nonlinear? Do you think that at some point having more subsidies could actually turn into a negative effect?
I have another question. It's a policy question more than the methodological question. You said on your first slide that you use the impact indicator employment for axis 3, and then you receive these negative values from the measure which normally belongs to axis 1. Do I understand it well? So was this expected by program authorities?
Of course. If you are doing modernization, you are buying machinery, equipment. If previously 10 men with spades are digging something and you are buying an excavator, you're losing 10 units of employment.
Okay,
that's purpose of modernization.
Then I have another question, because you are talking about program effects.
Yeah.
Where there are meetings somehow between axis 1 and axis 3 usually. So what was the program effect on employment then?
We have to wait till we finish this.
So you didn't finish?
Measure 3.
And you don't have any results for axis 3 yet?
We have only 1 week when we've got data from State Revenue Service, and data are of bad quality with gaps, and I don't know what will happen.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Lina, and I am from Lithuania. And my question is, you said that you used the FAND in the database for data, and also that you used values before intervention. As there is no values before intervention in FAD in the data, what was the source of information of these values before intervention? And how you managed to link this source and FAD data?
We are using only FADN data.
And in FADN, you have information about values before intervention. 2006
and 2014, but in some cases we are making average from 2 years in the beginning and average of 2 years in the end, because the data is kind of, only 2/3 of data has full row of data from 2006 and 2014. Farms are changing on the data panel. They are in between. They have no gaps, but some are starting reporting in 2010 and finishing in 2013.
Yes, and did you use data from the paying agency and registers, for example?
No, because our policies, we can use only the data sources from whom we can extract variables needed for calculation of gross value added. If we don't have such data, no way to use such
So the
such
only
sources.
source was feed-in.
Yeah.
Feed-in.
This is the only source in use.
It's on.
Okay. I just want to ask you, based on several limitations that you have mentioned. So, oh, sorry, yes. I'm Marili Parisaki from the core team of the Evaluation Help Desk. And my question is, based on several limitations that you and others have mentioned, in terms, for instance, of the availability of data, there wasn't enough data, you said, in FADN, or too few units for controls, etc., whether you have or plan to use any other method for validating the results, any qualitative approach to this end?
As I said, I'm not convinced that you can assess gross value added in a qualitative manner. But of course, all these measures can be evaluated using generalized propensity score, Jerzy will tell you. But I'm not sure that the results would be rigorous when we will use generalized propensity score. That's a way you can do it, by using generalized propensity score.
Okay, I have the feeling that Jerzy is nearly exploding, and so you still have a very short comment on this. But then I will conclude this discussion on it.
No, but definitely I'm not exploding, because we'll be having plenty of time, to discuss it also during breaks. So I realize that this is not a problem. But I'd like to also point out one issue which is very important from my point of view. In the list of control variables that you include for estimation of the logit function, I think that it is very important to get some variables which will eliminate previous dependency path. Because it may happen, of course, that many beneficiaries received also a lot of money from the previous program in year 2006. Or they receive a lot of money from the previous program in year 2005. And you don't know whether the distribution of this money is equal to for the group of beneficiaries controlled. So what you have to do, we have to include variables, control variables, which will be the sum of received support in the previous programming period. Yes? So it means I included this variable, and I know that it works pretty well. So we sum up amount of support received in the former period, and to control this variable in the group of beneficiaries and non-beneficiaries by making sure that there is no dependency path from the previous program. Okay, so this is one issue. Now, the second, I have to say something about this number of variables. In my analysis, I had more than 1,000 observations, and of course, I used I don't know how many, 39, or I don't know, I don't remember how many. It was pretty many. But the issue is that the variables which are used as controls should at the same time affect outcomes and should decide on participation of the farm in the program. So it means that the variables are not somehow invented without any theory. The theory is that the variables should have an effect on outcome and the participation of the beneficiaries in the program. Okay? So everything what decides on participation should also be included. Yes? So for instance, if you say that eligibility criteria were such that only large farms were included, okay, because of eligibility criteria, you should include the variable which is area of farm as a control, because exactly this variable decides whether farm can participate in the program or not. Yes? So all the necessary eligibility criteria, if they were formulated quantitatively, should be included there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.